Welcome back to Gaming with Spoons. Now, Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of the most sought after titles, I think, for a lot of people. A lot of people are really anticipating this remake, and of course with Tetsuya Normura heading the production on that, a lot of people are waiting to see what Square Enix is going to be able to do. But in a recent interview, Tetsuya Normura said that Final Fantasy VII Remake isn't the only Final Fantasy VII game that he would have an idea or a potential to return to. And he kind of talked about potentially remaking some of the other Final Fantasy VII compilation games. Now, for those of you who are unaware of what the Final Fantasy VII compilation games are, they consist of Before Crisis, Final Fantasy VII, Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII, Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII, and Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Out of 4 of those, we have gotten 3. Now, I want to talk a bit about Before Crisis first, because Before Crisis was a mobile phone game back in Japan, which is probably the reason we didn't get it. At the time that this game had come out, the US phones weren't really up to par with being able to do mobile games like they are now. But this was a game that we unfortunately just missed out on. Before Crisis followed the events of the Turks, kind of leading up to the events of Final Fantasy VII. It was kind of like a game where you played as Rude and Reno, Elena and Sung, and kind of all the Turks, what they were doing during that time, and kind of what led, I guess, up to the events that went on in Final Fantasy VII. I think it would be really interesting to kind of be able to dive into the Turks a little bit more, and kind of see what they were a part of, what they would do. This was a game that I actually really remember always wanting to get, hoping that sometime they would port this over to the Nintendo DS, the PlayStation Portable, the 3DS, and it just never happened. At this point, this is the one I would like to see a remake most out of, because I feel like giving this a fresh coat of paint, slapping it on the Nintendo Switch, maybe giving it a little bit of the art style that, say, The World Ends With You had. I think that would be really, really cool, as long as they don't make it as gimmicky and touchscreeny. Motion controls, things like that. Make it a typical RPG. Keep it in the veins of what the original was, bring that over. That would be really, really awesome, and a welcome entry, as it would finally give people like me who have been waiting for so long to play that game an opportunity to go in and play it. Next up, I'm going to briefly gloss over is Advent Children. I don't really see how they could do a very decent remake of this, considering it's a movie, but why not? Given to the right studio, I feel like they could expand on the story just a little bit, maybe add some new plot details, some new plot settings, kind of expand a little bit what was going on. Maybe give it to Platinum Games, let them have a whack at it, and make it a complete action RPG. That'd be pretty sweet in of itself. Dirge of Cerberus, Final Fantasy VII, perhaps the worst game in the compilation. Though it's not terrible, it's definitely not the best. I personally enjoyed it just due to the fact that Vincent was one of my favorite characters from Final Fantasy VII. I really enjoyed him as a character, and being able to get more information on his backstory, how he tied in with Lucrezia, how he tied in with Hojo, and kind of that whole situation, and how he felt responsible for what was personally going on in the world, was a really nice touch. I feel like at this point, they could really dive in deep and expand a story a little bit more. Even just doing a remaster at this point is something potential, but again, this is that project that I kind of don't want to see them revisit, because I feel like Dirge of Cerberus came out, I've played it, and I really have no desire to go back and redo that game unless they really try to give that a fresh coat of paint. And the last game we're going to talk about is Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core. Hands down, Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core is the best game in the compilation. Crisis Core was the emotional journey of a group of friends that was put through hell and back as basically the company that they worked for pretty much destroyed them. Crisis Core, we get to see a saner side to Sephiroth, see Sephiroth as a human being. We got to see Zack and his character and let Zack really grow on you as a character. I thought it was a really interesting concept, really interesting game. Its story was just flat out amazing. It was so emotional and so well done. But Crisis Core really kind of gave you the whole scenario of what went on, and you walked away from that game heartbroken. Anybody who's played Final Fantasy VII knows the fate of what happens to Zack. So, it is what it is, but this game, Crisis Core, was such an underrated title on the PlayStation Portable, and really the standing glory of what the Compilation project had brought. I would really like to see nothing more than just a complete full-on remaster of Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII. I think doing something along the lines of building it from the ground up, using some of the same assets, keeping some of the same environments, or really just going in and doing a complete overhaul on the remaster, making sure those graphics, those facial animations, those games are crisp. The HD setting looks really, really great. This is the one project that I would love to see Square Enix undertake, because Crisis Core is a game that deserves so much more attention than what it got. But I want to hear your thoughts, your opinions down below. What do you guys think of a potential remake of some of the Final Fantasy VII compilation projects? Of course, Final Fantasy VII needs to be finished up first. Square Enix needs to focus their assets on that and not worry too much about it. But this is something that I'd like to see. Be sure to hit subscribe there for me to keep up to date with all of my content. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Links are going to be down below in that description box. You guys have been watching Gaming with Spoons, and most importantly, stay happy, be happy, game happy. Spoons is checking out.